Hey everyone, I'm super excited today to have with us a very special guest. Today we have a very dear friend of mine and a super awesome guy, Omer Glass. Now, Omer is the founder of a phenomenal company called GrowthSpace, which he's going to talk about and get into. But today is not only about hearing about GrowthSpace, what their goals are, what they're trying to accomplish, and the impact they're trying to make and they're going to make in this world. It's also hearing about Omer, his own personal impact, his own personal goals, and how Omer got to who he is and all the lessons he learned along the way. So, Omer, thank you so much for joining us, brother.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
You're welcome. It's an absolute pleasure. I wish people were able to see your smile right now. So if anyone just listening to this on audio, you're missing out this massive smile on his face that literally will warm up and lighten up your heart and your day. So if you're listening, definitely imagine that and let it warm up your day. So
we're right before Thanksgiving, right?
So right before Thanksgiving, let's just jump into it. Omer, what are you grateful for today?
Actually, I'm grateful for our connection. I think that we tried to record one episode, and something didn't come up so well. And there, maybe it's technical, maybe I wasn't energetic enough. I don't know when was it exactly. And then we met in New York, and we had a nice dinner, got to know each other, and I think it's about eventually making meaningful connections. And you just invited me to your future wedding.
Not just future. I'm inviting you as the best man, God willing. God willing, whenever it happens, whoever it's going to be with, you're definitely invited, and as the best man. To make sure, I know Israelis don't necessarily believe in dressing up to weddings or having a tuxedo or a suit, so please get one. So grateful for super impactful connections, and a lot of what GrowthSpace is all about is, to a certain degree, making meaningful connections between the people that are looking for mentorship and the people that want to be mentored. Now, how important, I guess, let's start off from the beginning, is mentorship in someone's career, which essentially, GrowthSpace is trying to solve for, and how important has mentorship been in your life that helped you grow?
That's a great question, but I will claim that, mentorship is a tool to achieve something. Right. So eventually, mentoring or coaching or development needs to serve something which is your goal. And your goal will not just having a mentor. Having a mentor is maybe it's nice, but it's not meaningful enough. So eventually, it's about your personal or professional growth. And in order to achieve a very good personal growth, and I will talk about my experience, I've been to tons of workshops and saw lectures, etc. But my meaningful professional growth always happened when I worked with someone, with an individual, on something specific that I wanted to achieve. So, and this basically is what we're doing at GrowthSpace, trying to help people to understand what they need, where their next growth should be. And it can be something soft, like communicate better, receive feedback better, being more DEI sensitive, be a better leader, communicate a message better, to things that are very connected to your day-to-day at work, no matter where you are. So, building better trust with your customers if you're in sales, customer success, driving your throughput if you're in R&D, building a better product roadmap, etc. So basically everyone has a growth challenge. So we know how to understand this challenge, match them with the right expert who will help them to grow. So
you mentioned something interesting in the beginning about your own I guess personal challenges and your own personal growth that was matched. It was only to grow forward when you're matched up with somebody. So take me through that process of, I guess, your own personal growth and the things that you've worked on personally and professionally.
Yeah,
And go ahead.
of course. So I'm currently working with three experts on my
Okay.
personal growth. One of them is an amazing coach. He's one of the top CEO coaches that you can find. His name is Samuel Merhav, and he's helping me with articulating and improving my leadership skills.
Okay.
So, for example, the vision I stated very clearly was due to basically his support. And I'm working with another great mentor, Dan, on my basically HR skills or HR proficiency. He's a great HR expert, and we work in the HR space, and so he mentors me around HR. And another one is one of our first investors and our chairman of the board. His name is Gil, and he's helping me better to become a better CEO because he sold the company Supersonic to Iron Source, and he scaled an organization, drove revenue, managed the board. So he's basically supporting me with this management. And that's the beauty. Like, you always have challenges. Like, I have three, and I think it's even not enough. I just don't have more time to be matched with more people. But yeah, if you want to grow, it's a great way to grow.
Okay. So if you needed another mentor or another like area to focus on, or another more experts to match up with, what would you focus on next to bring in?
Professionally?
Or it could be either.
Okay, so I will choose. All the three were professionals. So I just watched the movie Free Solo, and it's like a climbing movie. And actually, I was free soloing in Vietnam at the age of like 23. And so, yeah, I would choose this person in free solo. His name is Alex, I think. I'm not sure. I think his name is Alex. But he's crazy. He like climbed like a big wall in Yosemite called El Capitan, and with no ropes and stuff. Yeah, so I think I would want him to be my climbing mentor.
And then what walk me through a process like, a lot of times in life, always trying to grow as human beings. I mean, I hope we're all trying to grow because, only here for a certain amount of time in order to become the best version of ourselves. But most times, we get placed into, become stagnant, become complacent. And, life just takes over and we stop, applying the growth. We stop trying to become, 1% better every single day. So I'm sure you've probably seen, the science behind it on the professional side, or the data behind it. But what are some types of tips and things that people could do in order to get out of that rut to really, try to become the best version, and then, maybe going ahead and asking for help or getting the help they need in order to for someone to motivate them to grow, show them how to grow.
Yeah. So I think one reason that people are stagnant is because, you're not a slave of the circumstances. So no matter where you are, you have a lot of room for growth. And no matter if you work in a great corporate, like the corporate wants you, usually, if they don't want you, so just, leave the job and find something else. But if you will grow, if you will take more responsibility, if you will, like in professional life, if you choose something, okay, I want to remove 20% of the workload for my direct manager, for example. Your direct manager will love that. I want to work on a different project, okay? Like, for example, I worked in management consulting and I was very, very intrigued by people's growth. So I asked my boss, hey, can I be in charge of our people development? And I have these and these ideas. And every time, if you're doing something good, people will say, yeah, sure, go do that. So I think number one is just understanding that you can, and give yourself the permission to grow in whatever you're interested in. Number two, I totally resonate with what you just said. It's very good to have someone. It can be a mentor, it can be a buddy, it can be someone like you who wants to grow, and you can like coach each other. And hey, Ephraim, what's your next thing? I just did it for you just 1 minute before. I challenged you with something, right? So I think it's about, challenging you. Hey, Omer, where you want to grow, what you want to do. And then why don't you just do that?
Right. Right. And I like what you said, the first part we mentioned. You said, give yourself the permission, because a lot of times we don't give ourselves that permission. And, giving ourselves the permission is almost like, having compassion for ourselves in order to allow ourselves to go on this journey, to make the mistakes, to fail, but giving ourselves permission to order to anticipate, to really experience that. So I like that very much.
And you said something very important. Give yourself the permission to fail. Because usually we do not try because we're afraid that we're going to fail. Hey, you have a podcast, but what if no one will listen to this podcast? It will suck, right? Okay, I want to start a startup, but most fail. Mm-hmm. But if I will not do that, if I will not try, so just start a podcast and know that it is going to fail. And best case, it will succeed, but it is going to fail. But try to fail a lot. And I like to quote like Seth Godin here. In order to have one good idea, he says, you need to fail, like you need to have like 30 bad ideas. Or you need to fail 30 times before you succeed just once. Or just try and fail and be rejected. And this is like something super important. I failed so many times. I still do.
So talk me through some of those failures that you went through.
Sure. So, for example, before starting GrowthSpace, I worked on a car sharing startup. Mm-hmm. So I basically connected with one of the world's largest like car rental companies. And I basically agreed with them that we are going to launch like a new cool format of car sharing. And so we started, like we had the agreement, etc. We worked on that for like 3 months. And then this company was acquired by another company. And they just shut up the project. And it was a big failure for me because I started and I like put a lot of effort inside, and I actually like I sold it to, we started in like a specific hubs like universities, railway stations, etc. And we had like actual agreements with like universities to put like cars below the university. We had a great financial model. We had funding. We had everything, and then bam, nothing, out of work. So this was a failure, but and eventually it turned out well. Like now I'm doing something even better.
So before, we have to understand. I want to understand. Before, first of all, how you got into entrepreneurship, and also this whole entire growth mindset, because most people don't just acquire growth mindset. Growth mindset comes after going through experiences in life. And from experiences in life, you start acquiring this growth mindset, knowing that, to improve, to work on ourselves, to become better. So let's take it all the way back from the beginning to a little Omer, the little baby Omer. Where are you from and what was your upbringing like?
So I was born in Israel. And then my father worked in the valley. So we moved to Sunnyvale, California, and not far from San Francisco. And when I was like 4, we spent there some time, came back to Israel. And then I basically grew up in Israel, in Tel Aviv, and did an army service. This is something that most of us do in Israel. It contributed a lot, I think, to basically what I'm doing today. I was like in combat, like special forces. And then I just went to travel. I loved to travel. So I traveled like 4 times to the Far East. Started university. I was very excited about behavioral economics, so this is what I studied. I liked Dan Ariely and to understand how people basically work. And then you asked me about my entrepreneurship. So one thing I did is during my master's, I started a nonprofit, which basically took students like me and connected them with classes from like low socioeconomic background. And they basically gave a course around entrepreneurship. So it was like small entrepreneurship. I didn't really care that it will become a business or something, but the idea there was just build something, create something that wasn't there, like make something of your own, you know? So it could be like one kid, and they were like in the 10th grade. One kid went to a motorbike shop and offered them that, hey, if I will sell your motorbikes at high school to other kids, can I have a commission? And they said, of course. Like, you know, no upfront payment, and he sold some bikes. And another kid started the taekwondo lessons, to give taekwondo lessons to younger kids. Another girl did environmental classes for the 7th graders, etc. So each one of the children had to come up with something they care about and just create it. So I think this was basically my first thing that I actually built, which was kind of cool. Like eventually I raised money for that, and I think like a few thousand kids went through this program with also other students. And so this was the first one. And then I started a startup that was called Careerology, which was like online school for career development. And it was great. Like I had an incredible partner, like someone super senior in the like Israel, like a coaching development space. And we worked on that for a year, and eventually it failed. So, but yeah, so and again, another failure. So yeah, I think that was like, and then I worked for a consulting company, a management consulting company, which gave me a lot of very valuable experience to what I'm doing now. And then I worked there for 5 years, and then I just decided that, okay, I really want to be an entrepreneur, something that I felt. So I just went. First, I went to motorcycle in the Himalayas for like a few months. And then when I went back, I started like to, you know, become an entrepreneur. So it took some time until I founded the GrowthSpace, and I tried a lot of things like the car sharing thing, and failed again and again and again until I did it right.
You know, it's funny, like all the micro, I think, and we spoke about a lot about this in the past, I think, that, you know, our human life experience, everything we go through, it essentially has, you know, a purpose, right? So all the macro decisions and experiences we go through all enhance the version that we become today, all play a part of it. And, you know, I truly, truly believe that everything happens at the right time. Everything. You know, nothing happens before it's supposed to happen, and nothing happens after it's supposed to happen. It happens like, you know, you found the growth space in a time when, you know, when in a time for us to go through all the previous experiences, but also the way how it is, the world is going, the way the world is turning towards right now is a prime opportunity. Like if you would have found a company like growth space 4 or 5 years ago, not necessarily would have been as successful, or, you know, had the growth that it's having today. Because we live in a very growth mindset opportunity, and everything's remote, and everyone's looking for mentorship, and everyone's looking to grow, affords us the ability in order to create it. So having all those previous experiences is so essential to that part. So I want to talk about, you know, one of the things, you skipped over your childhood like totally, so I'm going to assume it was amazing. But experiencing, you know, the traveling, because I think traveling is really, really amazing. And I think it provides a unique experience to everybody. And I think it really opens people's minds and plays a massive part into our personal development. So I want to talk about your personal development, how you transformed from a boy growing up to going to the army services until you're experiencing traveling, because you mentioned you've been to South to Asia multiple times,
Yeah.
Which itself is a very spiritual experience, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So your own spiritual experience of growing through that, your own spiritual growth of becoming, because it's essentially we are one. It plays a massive part into who we are.
Yeah. So I think that eventually traveling is kind of like starting a startup. Just, you're not working, but you're into an adventure. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You go to new places, you meet new people, and everything changes very rapidly. And you're taking risks. So I think that traveling is, and again, you need to love that. Although most people love traveling, sometimes in different forms. But yeah, I think I always loved adventures and looking for adventures. Like rock climbing in Vietnam or biking in the Himalayas, and leads you to try new things, and so you can basically try more, and if you try more, the odds that you will find more things you love increases. So
Yeah. And one of the things about traveling is like people always want to know, and I heard this question so many times. I hear it from people that's been travel and I love to travel myself. Is that traveling? There's a certain carefree attitude that you have, and
and entrepreneurship is no carefree.
no.
Yeah, yeah. This is yeah. It's totally right. Like they're carefree, and everything is possible, and yeah, you just worry about what you're gonna eat and where you're going to go, and it's. I think it's great. Like I always, and I traveled 4 times for like several months. And I think it's super important, especially when you don't have so much commitment, like, kids and mortgage, etc. So just go travel.
It's good, especially now when we're working remote. So go ahead
Yeah,
and do it.
definitely.
So let's go back. Let's tap back into GrowthSpace. GrowthSpace, thank God you raised $19 million to date. You're growing to close to 50 people almost, and you have a goal. And the goal is to impact 1 million people's lives directly by 2025. Right. So I want to let's talk about, first of all, impact. And let's talk about, what it's like, to grow a startup, to build a startup in this day and age, currently right now, based off all your previous experiences, everything you learned, so all the mistakes you learned not to make, and all the mistakes you had to make in order to build this incredible rocket ship that you're going to build, that you are building right now, the next thing. So let's first talk about the goal of impacting 1 million people's life, which I think is so meaningful in a time when people are looking to grow, looking for inspiration, and looking to connect with people.
Yeah. So again, well, as I explained, what we're doing in GrowthSpace is eventually we work with companies, usually big companies. So it starts usually with 200 employees, but it can come until like Fortune 100. And these companies really want to invest in their people's growth, because then, first of all, people are better with their job, people are happier because people want to grow, etc. And the way we do that is just understand each individual's growth needs, or what do we need to work on now. Like what it can be, again, I want to be able to receive feedback better, to provide feedback better, to communicate, to be more enthusiastic in my meeting, etc. And to close more deals, to think more strategically about the product, whatever you do. And so we understand the challenge, and then we basically match them with the right expert who expertise, like who specializes in that domain, the specific domain they're trying to solve. And we do that at scale. So eventually, GrowthSpace is like a sum of a lot of these people being matched with experts for short sprints of development. Usually it's 5 sessions to reach an objective, to be able to articulate my vision clearer. This could be something that I will be able to say, okay, yeah, I see the change in real life. So eventually, what I said like before, so we enable professional growth that is real, reliable, and relevant. And we want these triple R's, again, real, reliable, relevant. So real means a change happened in your life, so you grew. It's not just, okay, I consumed some content, but nothing happened. Something is different in my life. This is real. Reliable, if you want to develop 100 employees, so it will not be like 50-50. 50 will have a real change and 50 not. I wanted to make it 100. So reliable, it's consistent. And relevant, it's relevant to what they do. It's relevant to the business because, again, it has to be also relevant to the business. It serves also the business and also the individual. So this triple R growth, we want to enable it to 1 million people by 2025. And this is a big challenge. And before the call, Ephraim asked me, 1 million? Why not more? I think the bar should be higher. And I'm like, yeah, but think about developing more the population of San Francisco. Or, more than twice the population of Tel Aviv. Like you go in the street, you see so many people. It's almost like the population of Manhattan.
Right.
So yeah, I think 1 million is it's a nice thing. It's like a small country, and think about making the impact on like 1 million lives and the ripple effect that it creates. Because if I helped you with your communication, it will not end there. So you will communicate better. So it will impact the people around you. On your management, if I help you to become a better manager, the lives of the people you manage will be better because now it's better. You will be able to support them better and for them to achieve their goals. So yeah, this is what we're building.
Right. It's so important, especially now when the whole rush for talent and everyone's trying to find talent and people are jumping between companies. If a company really puts that time into invest within the development of their own employees, not only does it keep the talent, but also makes them more committed to the company, where they feel more, I wouldn't call it obligated, but they feel more grateful in the sense that the company is investing in them, that they can become better. It's so important. So let's jump to the second thing is, building a company in 2021. What's it like? How's it going for you? What are the challenges you're facing as a growing and scaling culture and building it up and everything?
So first of all, growing is hard. That's the beauty of growth, that it's fun, it's exciting, but it's hard. Right. So I think that the point, and eventually as an entrepreneur who is doing that in that scale, I never ran a 50 employees company before, right? So it's the first time. But when you're approaching this challenge in a beginner's mindset, or hey, I'm doing my best, but and I have a lot of opinions about how to do stuff, but I'm very open and receptive for whatever will come from anyone in the company. Basically, I expect any employee in our company, GrowthSpace, to be able to give me one of our biggest values at GrowthSpace is grow. We're growing others, so we need to care about our growth and our peers' growth. So I expect anyone at GrowthSpace to give me a moment of growth, which is basically help me to grow as a CEO. And this is our job, right? Together. I expect you. I wish that you will give me after this interview a moment of growth about how can I be better in the next podcast. So when you're in this growth mindset, first understanding that most of the times you will not be right. Most of the times you will be wrong and other people will be right. but you're trying to get to the truth and you're trying to make the right things in order to build this company in a better way. So you listen a lot. And I remember once hearing like the CEO of a ZipRecruiter said, yeah, he just sat with a lot of people more talented than him. And his role as a CEO was just to, listen and eventually figure out what's the best for the company. So there are a lot of things that we're doing. And again, it's like hiring, building function, like selling and customer success, doing operations, marketing, engineering, product, finance, legal, HR. So you're basically building a company, but eventually it comes down to like, okay, I have a goal to make something good here. And I have a lot of very talented people around me. So first finding these people who will join you in this journey and listen to them, not being right, but trying to get to the truth.
Listening is such a powerful tool and a skill that needs to be developed. So powerful. So what surprises you the most then, also?
Pardon?
What surprised you the most now while building it?
What surprised me? I think sometimes you just grasp the magnitude of like your growth. Like
Right.
1 quarter passed, and I think we doubled our headcount in 1 quarter. And you're doing it, and it's like your day to day, and you're interviewing people, hiring people, etc. And then you're coming to the office or to an offsite. Like in North America, we work fully remote, and our Israel office, and we work in the office once a week. So it's like extremely hybrid. And then you're seeing all these people working with you eventually on a vision that you thought about with 2 co-founders in 2019. And now it's, it just became a thing of like thousands of people are working on GrowthSpace from like different angles, right? We have over 1,000 experts who work with us and really, really senior people. And we have all these amazing employees and all these amazing customers and partners that we're basically driving this vision together. So I think it always surprises me how many people eventually believe in the concept that you came up with just not so long ago.
Right. That's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And being in a position like yourself is a position of responsibility and privilege where you have to earn, essentially. These employees chose you to work together with you. But I want you to take me back to right in the beginning of founding the company. What was the first, I guess, beta version that you did in order to test the concept, if this thing would even work? Then you went, which meant afterwards you went ahead to build the technology around it.
Yeah, exactly. So technology is a big, big part of what we're doing today. And like most of our employees are like the biggest function in the organization is basically product and engineering, like the people who are building the technology, because the technology is like the secret sauce of taking an experience of just one employee,
Right.
just matching one employee, understanding what one employee needs and matching them with the right expert and running this is easy. Taking it to thousands is the hard part. So you need a lot of experts and you need data and you need NLP and algorithms and like a lot of things that we do in our technology. But in the beginning, you just need to, like you said, test the concept. So it always starts with something very, very small. So, you say, okay, let's first come up with a concept, create a presentation, approach potential customers, see if they're interested. So when we came to our first customers, I don't think we had mentors at all, mentors or coaches. We just had partners coming with a presentation, ugly presentation, something we designed in like $5 on Fiverr. And then you see that, okay, someone wants to buy.
Right.
And then the first customer said, yeah, I want 5 of my managers to go through this GrowthSpace.
Right.
Great. So we found 5 experts to match them. and then I built like a mock product on Wix platform, something very, very, very basic. And then we came to the second customer, and they bought also 5, and then the third one, so it eventually grew quite rapidly. And so it was like building first demand, like coming to customers with concept, trying like to get them sign on something and pay for that. Like we never gave anything for free, because you need to learn that people will pay for what you have to offer. And then after you get a demand, so you build what you need to build in order to serve this demand. And then sometimes it doesn't work. Like it's a lot of like grunt work in the beginning, because now it's easy, right? We work with over 100 customers. Some of them are great names. So it's relatively easy to sell to another customer, because we have a lot of success stories. But when you have no success stories, this is the hard time. Like the 0 to 1 is a very, very hard.
Right. Wow. So I love the fact that like you started charging from day one. From your first customer, you started charging.
Yeah. I think it's very important, because if you do not pay for something, and again, I know that sometimes people do not charge, but I think eventually you need people to be serious about the engagement, and you pay for things that bring you value.
Right. Right. That's an interesting concept, because most times, especially in a B2B product like yourself, it's all about, okay, let me first get them to come and acquire a few seats through a free beta version. And then once we have the free beta version, then hopefully I'm going to go ahead and upsell them and try to convert them into a paying customer. As in, like, your approach is, let's pay on the spot, 5 seats for 5, coaches, or for 5 employees. And then we're going to start upselling you to more. But from day one, we're starting to sell. So you're able to prove that. Did you have? At what point did you come across to having product market fit?
I think when you know that you have product market fit, when you reach maybe the first $1 million ARR.
Okay.
And because it means that different customers paid you enough money for the value that you create in the world. And again, it's not about the money. Money just represents something of value, because we pay, if you're paying for shoes, it means that these shoes, you perceive their value, so you're willing to pay from basically your pocket. So I would say, yeah, and like a first $1 million or something like that, that, okay, I have a product market fit, different types of customers and different geographies. Now, most of our market is in North America. So you need to make sure that, enough people basically are interested in what you have to do, and then it just, scaling.
Right. And now that's it. Now you're on the scaling process. So you're trying to impact 1 million people's lives by 2025.
Yeah.
That you're going to be able to measure. It's going to be real, reliable, and relevant, which is amazing.
Exactly.
That's incredible. Wow. So then what is next for Omer? What is next for Omer? What is next for GrowthSpace as you're on this journey?
I think what I just defined is a big next, right? We have a big vision to fulfill by 2025, make it more sophisticated, finding more experts, finding more customers, building new methods to create this triple R. Like now we work mostly one-on-one. We want also to be able for you to work in like small groups, for example, to facilitate internal resources in order to mentor people, like internal mentoring, where we work on that with customers. So again, like the vision is to enable 1 million people. Like GrowthSpace will be in charge of, making this triple R real, relevant, reliable for 1 million people by 2025. And then it's like building great technology, building great marketing, building, bigger sales team, customer success, operations, all of these things that eventually carry this vision forward.
I think, once you open up to the public, I know I can see the amount of benefit that such a thing I could use in my life. Thank God I have mentors, but being able to really sort of have the technology component of it, being able to say, hey, I want to mentor up in a certain space. to start receiving feedback on something, and being able to tap it, use technology to see my progress, to use technology to find somebody that's really, has been there and done that before me, being able to tap into their knowledge. So going in a consumer route also is something that I would definitely be excited about. So I could personally use something like that in order to grow personally and professionally. So that would be really cool. But besides you mentioning that before that you have your own your 3 mentors, what else are you doing in order to upskill yourself, to make yourself better, in order to show up better for the company and for yourself, besides the other 3 types of things you mentioned, with your 3 mentors?
So me and one of my partners, like our co-founder and COO, Dan, who is amazing. So we have like a quarterly feedback session. So I'm really trying to receive like structured feedback from him about we observe each other and we see each other grow. So I think it's like the structured feedback and unstructured feedback that you get all the time from people. A lot of people tell me all the time, hey, Omer, a moment of growth. You can do that better. In the all hands, you should have done that, etc. So it's looking for the feedback in the good way. Like every time people give me feedback, it's an opportunity for me to grow, because I'm starting from the assumption that, I know nothing, like blank slate, and I'm doing a lot of mistakes. And if people can highlight, hey, like I had this example. I was interviewing for a podcast with a lady, and the podcast was bad. I didn't come up with energy. I wasn't structured. I didn't tell enough stories, etc. So we finished the podcast, and she was like, I want to give you 3 tips. Do you want to hear them? I said, of course. And then she gave me the 3 tips. And then in the same evening, I had a podcast interview with Andrew Warner from Mixergy, which is like one of the top business podcasts in the United States. And this podcast was amazing because of her. So I think, people give you all the time opportunities to grow. They're giving you feedback. So just look for the feedback, ask for the feedback, and just act upon it.
Right.
With an expert, with yourself, with a buddy, with, I don't know, your boss.
Right. Yeah, I'm going to ask for the feedback afterwards. But I love one thing you mentioned. I'm not sure if you realize it, or maybe it is a type of thing, when you call it a moment of growth, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when someone comes to you and says, hey, I want to give you a moment of growth. I love that, because it's almost like you're asking you permission in order to be vulnerable, in order to be truthful, in order to give real feedback without you taking it the wrong way. So if it's the example, if I see you, acting out, or I see you doing something, and I say, hey, Omer, how about a moment of growth? A moment of growth. It's almost like, okay, you're able to lower your defenses, lower your guard, in order for me to be able to accept it. In order for you to be able to accept, or whoever's receiving it, lower your guard and not take it from a negative or bad place.
Exactly.
I love that.
Specifically because usually a lot of times people take feedback in the wrong way.
Right.
Like once, someone who's working for us gave me a presentation, like sales, and I gave her some feedback, which was very constructive. Like, hey, you need to do that better, and and she started crying.
Okay.
And I was like, no, do not cry. We're trying to help you feel better. And the reason that people take it so bad, because, people are so used to be like scored, like, in high school, you get rated A, B, A plus, A plus plus, and you want to be great. All of us want to succeed.
Yeah.
But once you realize that these opportunities are opportunities for you to get to the A eventually, not now, but after you practice, this is like the secret. So I really love moment of growth, and I think it's better framing to just saying feedback, because sometimes the connotation of feedback is negative.
Right. I love it. I'm definitely going to start using it. I think it's so powerful, so powerful. Wow. So then what do we tell a young Omer that, is facing the world for the first time, that has so many opportunities in front of him? He's able to go continue down, motorcycling through the Himalayas and just stay there and open up a coffee shop on the mountaintop. And, for all the travelers and, they're going to come by and just hang out there. Or you could come back to Israel, come back to Israel and try to work at Microsoft and become something, or continue in consulting, or going down the startup path. What do we tell the young Omer that's facing the world for the first time and has the world of opportunities, and he can choose any path?
I think it's the path less matters than the process eventually. I think the most important thing, like the best tip I could give to myself is, go with your intuition, follow your heart, do what intrigues you. And it doesn't matter where it is. Eventually, like Steve Jobs said in his very famous commencement speech, you will connect the dots later, but just follow your interests eventually. So I think it doesn't really matter if I went to, like, when I interviewed for the management consulting I worked for. I also interviewed for Google, for example. And eventually, I was accepted there earlier. But if I went, let's say I did go to work for Google, I would learn different things. But eventually, it's about doing things, taking learning opportunities. Google is a great learning opportunity. Consulting is a great learning opportunity. But always listen, and when the time comes for you, eventually, when you feel like you need a change, usually you know that. Don't be afraid to do the change. Like, do not stay. If it doesn't feel right, it's time to move forward. Again, you do need to have the stamina, because sometimes things are hard. So you don't get confused from the deep when things are hard, and you need to stay with, when you're okay, like, it was enough for me, and now I want to go to my next adventure. So I think it's about just the process and less specific path, because the path doesn't really matter.
Right. Wow. I love it. I absolutely love it. I love it so much. Omer, thank you. I mean, I've learned a tremendous amount. I've thoroughly enjoyed this, and I enjoy talking to you every single time I speak with you. I learn something new. I learn more things about myself, more things about you, and more things about the world, and it opens my mind more. Today specifically, I learned a bunch of stuff, and I love one of the things I'm going to take and implement is a moment of growth. I'm going to use that phrase all the time, and it's also really also anticipating, realizing that every aspect of our lives is for a bigger purpose, and everything we go through is in order to help us grow and help us grow further, and to really appreciate the journey around it. And that's really what's all about. And and like a lot of times, the conversation is not really the words that are being spoken, but it's the conversation that's not spoken about, which is everything under the actual conversation. And for me, that's where the real conversation lies, and being able to really learn things from over there on the subconscious level. And that's where I picked up a bunch of stuff, which I obviously after this conversation I'm going to have to internalize much more deeper. But I want to thank you. Thank you so much. And it goes without saying, I'm here for you. I'm here for GrowthSpace any way possible. So thank you so much, brother.
Thank you so much, Frank.
Welcome.